International Criminal Court (ICC) has called on world leaders, most especially leaders from its 125 member states and civil society organizations (CSOs), to unite against the President of the United States (US), Donald Trump, following the executive order signed on Thursday by the North American president with plans to impose sanctions on ICC officials over the court arrest warrant issued against Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former defense minister Yoav Gallant for alleged war crimes in Gaza. This, ICC, in a press release issued few minutes ago, said that President Donald Trump is trying to politicize the international court, harm it, and deny the court the freedom to continue to protest the rights of millions of victims of war crimes and atrocities across the globe. Donald Trump had on Thursday signed an executive order authorizing economic sanctions against the International Criminal Court (ICC). The president accused the ICC of illegitimate and baseless actions, investigations targeting the US and its ally Israel. The Hague had abused its power by issuing an arrest warrant for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, according to a section of the executive order. The ICC president, Judge Tomoko Akane, on Friday condemned the U.S. executive order and vowed to continue providing justice and hope to millions of innocent victims of atrocities across the world. The UN Human Rights Office said it deeply regretted the U.S. sanctions against the ICC and called for a reversal of the decision. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar on Friday praised Trump for imposing sanctions on the ICC, calling the court's actions against Israel immoral and illegitimate. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will pay his first visit to the Middle East this month, the State Department said late Thursday. Rubio will attend the Munich Security Conference and then visit Israel, the UAE, Qatar and Saudi Arabia from February 13 through 18. The executive order grants the U.S. president broad powers to impose asset freezes and travel bans against ICC staff and their family members if the U.S. finds that they are involved in efforts to investigate or prosecute citizens of the U.S. and certain allies. The U.S. action against the ICC came in response to the court's decision in November to issue arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former defense minister Yoav Gallant for alleged war crimes in Gaza. Excerpts of the statement of ICC President Judge Tomoko Akane following the issuance of the U.S. executive order seeking to impose sanctions on the International Criminal Court reads below. I note with deep regret the issuance by the United States of an executive order seeking to impose sanctions on the officials of the International Criminal Court (ICC) court, harm the court's independence and its impartiality, and deprive millions of innocent victims of atrocities of justice and hope. The ICC is a judicial body which performs functions that align with the interests of the international community by enforcing and promoting universally recognized rules of international. In what looked like damage control, the U.S. Press Secretary, Caroline Leavitt, on Wednesday held a press conference at the White House, trying to clarify the statements her principal, President Donald Trump, made in the previous day that the United States will take over the ownership of the land and rebuild Gaza Strip for people all over the world to settle as economic center, with the press secretary making apparent contradicting statements that Donald Trump only meant that Palestinians in Gaza would be transferred temporarily to Egypt, Jordan and other neighboring countries of humanitarian hearts to enable the U.S. rebuild the city before the return of the Palestinian citizens, adding, the U.S. will not pay for the rebuilding of the city in the Middle East that have been in conflict with Israel for decades. According to the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, President Donald Trump has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza, and that the U.S. would not pay to rebuild it. Caroline Leavitt said President Trump's historic proposal for the United States to take over Gaza shows he is an outside-of-the-box thinker, adding that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. When asked by ABC News reporter Mary Bruce if President Trump would remove Palestinians from Gaza by force, Caroline Leavitt said that Trump is prepared to rebuild Gaza for Palestinians and all people in the region, peace-loving people who want real economic development. In a related development, the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, said that 461 illegal immigrants, out of more than 8,000 that have been arrested, have been released from federal custody for several reasons, including lack of detention availability. Since Tuesday, U.S. officials have continued to defend President Donald Trump's plans that Palestinians in war-shattered Gaza should relocate to neighboring countries, saying, the president was trying to look at the problem realistically, not imposing a solution. Some of the officials stressed that the U.S. wants to work with its Arab partners and Israel to come up with creative solutions to the challenge. 5 Arab foreign ministers and a senior Palestinian official sent a joint letter to U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Monday, opposing plans to displace Palestinians from Gaza, according to local media. Trump said the U.S. will be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous, unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the destroyed buildings and create economic development in the area. When asked who he envisions living in Gaza after it is rebuilt, Trump said, the world's people, including Palestinians. Local media reported on Wednesday that the White House faced backlash from U.S. lawmakers and allies who did not support the proposal, many saying Palestinians should be allowed to stay on their land and that it would make tensions in the region worse. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth told reporters before his own meeting with Netanyahu that the president was willing to think outside the box, look for new and unique, dynamic ways to solve problems that have felt like they were intractable. We had early on Tuesday, President Donald Trump of the United States, U.S. apparently passed across 2 interesting messages during the press conference held at the White House with the visiting Israel Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, saying at first that Gaza is a symbol of death and destruction where the people who have been living in the Gaza Strip were living in a miserable existence, hence once rebuilt the people who have fought to keep the Gaza city shouldn't occupy the place again, calling on Egypt, Jordan and other countries of interest to build new domains or new settlements in the neighboring countries for the 1.8 million Palestinians that will be transferred out of Gaza, and by second statement, Trump said U.S. will take over the ownership of the land, rebuild and make Gaza an economic center for people from different parts of the world, including Palestinians, to occupy. President Donald Trump said that the U.S. would own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs in the area, and added that Gaza could be the Riviera of the Middle East. Also saying that the bonds of friendship and affection between the American and Israeli people have endured for generations, and they are absolutely unbreakable. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too, said President Donald Trump. Hundreds of protesters stood out on Tuesday in the U.S. to demonstrate against the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to the White House, but they were outraged to hear President Donald Trump talk of the U.S. owning Gaza and forcibly displacing Palestinians. Trump, calling the Gaza Strip a symbol of death and destruction for so many decades, and an unlucky place for a long time, said the area should not go through a process of rebuilding and occupation by the same people that have really stood there and fought for it, and lived a miserable existence there. Instead, the president called on countries of interest with humanitarian hearts to build various domains that will ultimately be occupied by the 1.8 million Palestinians living in Gaza. It would be recalled that last month, the Biden administration, with assistance from the Trump transition team, helped secure an ongoing ceasefire between Israel and Hamas that has involved the exchange of hostages and prisoners on both sides. Gazans began returning to the devastated territory in late January, hoping for a permanent ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, who renewed the war in October 2023 when Hamas fighters invaded southern Israel, killing thousands of persons and taking hundreds of Israeli residents and tourists hostage. Israel has since killed an estimated 47,000 people in Gaza in return. President Donald Trump has said that the only reason Palestinians want to return to Gaza is because they have no alternative. But on Tuesday, Trump said the U.S. will be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous, unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, leveling the destroyed buildings and creating economic development in the area. When asked who he envisions living in Gaza after it is rebuilt, Trump said, "The world's people."
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.